So it took me about 5 minutes, 10 minutes with a grinder to do this. Let's see if it works. Does it fit? Fits. But I have to block the piston first. I can use that die holder for a piston stop, but that's just for doing the degree wheel. You really don't want to use that otherwise. Seems to work fine. Works for me. So now that's out, I'm going to remove the oiler pinion gear here. Seems to be fine. Probably going to have to remove the oiler. So let's see if we can take apart the chain brake here. One screw on the metal cover, which actually seems to be a little bit of a ding there. I'll reuse it, probably not that big of a deal. Still has some life left in it. These screws are not tight at all. At all. Now the chain brake, of course, is liable to go boing at any time, so always be careful about that. 4 chain brake screws. Now the spring here is actually under tension as is. The way to get it not under tension is to pop it like that. So now it's under less tension. Now that I've got the clutch off, the oiler, I can actually take, I've got some degreaser on here, I'm going to let that sit for a second. I'm actually going to take the piston and cylinder off. Should be okay now. I'm actually going to remove this piece. Piece there. I'll have to replace that. 4 bolts hold the whole thing on. One. Two. 3, 4. There we have that. It looks nice and clean inside, actually. It's basically a new saw for all intents and purposes. It's just been dropped, toyed with, monkeyed with, pretty clean inside, really, as far as I can see here. Looks nice. Looks really nice, actually. Nice cross hatching and everything. So this cylinder itself is not really worn hardly at all. Check the rings. Both the rings move just fine. Rings are nice loosey-goosey. That's good. So the circlips get pulled out. So I get the one circlip out. That's no problem. But this other one might prove to be a problem. You might not have to remove it at all. No, that looks like it's in there. I've decided to not crack the case. I've decided to leave the case as is for a number of reasons. One of them is that the bearings and seals are probably fine. It's a fairly new saw. I have no reason to suspect that the bearings and seals are bad. What is bad, or not great, is this piece, part of the case, and you can get stuff up in this flywheel. Sawdust, dirt, and whatever. So the real thing to do is to repair this. And in order to do that, I need to use some quick steel, and that's basically how we're gonna do that. So let's see if I can repair this with some quick steel and just at least get some type of a patch here. And if I get a patch that's good enough, then I'll just run it as is. So I'm going to have to grind away at this. There's a little bit of a bend here. I'm going to grind that back, and then I'm going to bevel it on both sides so the metal kind of thins out, and the quick steel will be able to grab it on both sides, actually on 3 sides, and then I'm going to hit this hard under here so it's pretty rough, and again that way the quick steel can grab pretty easily, because you do not want the patch flying off into the flywheel when you've got the throttle pegged, you know. So it's got to be a good patch. Let's see if we get some quick steel and go for it. First things, let's clean this up a bit, and then we're going to grind on it. And I've got some carb cleaner here that should work. So this is one of those things I don't need to videotape the whole thing, but I'll give you an idea of what I'm doing as we do it. So hopefully you can see this. I've got this beveled. Get a bevel here. It's almost a knife edge because I can add material on the outside, not on the inside. So I beveled it on the inside because I want to grab best I can there. No. So it doesn't fall off this way. So I'm going to make sure I clean it, make sure there's no oil on it, and we're going to do some quick steel. So I've made myself a form just out of paper, but it'll retain at least somewhat of a shape. I'll make sure to really squeeze the quick steel into here, and maybe it'll hold. Quick steel is pretty good. It's pretty amazing stuff, I think. So I've got a little bit of extra quick steel here, and this stuff I really like. Steel reinforced putty. It's quick steel. You get it well, wherever you buy car parts. One thing about this is you have got you mix up enough. Number one. Number two, you have to mix it a lot. So I fold it and mix. Fold it and mix. If you don't mix it a lot, what happens is it will not harden properly. Had that happen plenty of times. It sticks pretty good to almost anything. You can stick it to copper and make repairs in copper pipe. I've actually put this on my exhaust manifold on my Maxima years ago. It held for a very, very long time. Theoretically, it's good to about 500 degrees Fahrenheit. I think it's good to hotter than that. And this is getting warm. So I'm pretty sure I've got this mixed reasonably well. I want to really get it into the bevel here. I'm going to want to work it into the spots that I know it's going to hold the best. So on the sides here, I've got a little bit of extra retention, I think. I don't want a super thick layer because I don't want the saw to be off balance because this is so thick, but so a little bit extra on the inside will be okay. So I make sure push it into that bevel really, really well. And now I'm just going to smooth it and shape it and shape it and smooth it. And this should set in about 5 minutes or so. It does not take that long. And you know what, let's throw a little extra on the sides here. Just as reinforcement. You can drill this, you can tap it like steel, at least that's the idea. If it is not mixed well, it does not set well. And then it does not drill and tap. I've just got a knife here that I'm using to cut this. Don't want to overextend it because I believe the starter cover is going to sit right on this. So I do want to be careful to not overextend it this way. I'd say if and when I need to redo the bearings or something like that on this thing, then I will likely just change out the case half or maybe even the whole case. But right now, I'm going to leave this as is, I think. I think this is going to save me a lot of work. So as it's setting, I'm just going to smooth this a bit. Got the clamps on here, just holding the piece of paper in just to make sure it retains at least some shape. Just a form. This actually happens to be probably from frozen chicken for Megan. But anyway, I believe this is waxed paper, so it's probably not going to stick too well to it. At least that's my guess. But that's going to be the patch. We'll let that sit for a little while longer. That's cured for a couple of hours. And just a piece of paper. Apparently the paper stuck to it better than I thought it would. So I'm going to clean this up just a little bit. And then I'm going to probably throw some paint on there. I don't know what the ramifications of this being kind of bulky in this dimension. Sorry, this dimension. It's bulky this way. It's not bulky height-wise here. Maybe hit it with a sander just a little bit, but as long as the starter cover sits flush, I think we're going to be okay. Let me get that paper off there, clean it up a bit. So this patch pretty good. This patch isn't too thick. I think it'll do for the purposes that we got here. Clean it with a little bit of carb cleaner. I know I'm just going to hit it with a little bit of paint, and no particular reason on that. I'm not selling this saw. This is a saw that's going to be with me for a while, so no particular need, but I'll put a little paint on there just to make it look a little better. So once we get done with that, then it's a matter of putting the saw back together, hopefully with some new parts, and also I gotta do a little machining here. I'm going to do the same thing that I did to the 385, which is to take a thickness off the base here. The squish measured was about 33 thousandths, so I'm going to bring it down to 020, which means I need to take 13 thousandths off the top here very carefully. So this is where I am on the 372 project. I just machined this on the mill, and so it looks pretty good. The squish was 33 thousandths. I wanted an 020 squish, so I machined off, well, actually 12 thousandths because I wanted a little bit of fudge factor there, but machined off 12 thousandths, and that should allow me to put the piston on having roughly 020 to 021 squish. We'll see how that works. So now I've got to clean this really, really well, and so far I actually used some plumber's putty here. That seems to work right nicely, looks like. So I'm actually going to leave that there. So this is actually, I stuffed the crank with paper towels, and then I put a little plumber's putty here while I was machining just to keep the chips out, and I think that was a really good idea. So now I'm going to get the rest of this clean pretty good. Once it's clean, then we can actually get some timing numbers on the piston and cylinder and see where that ends us up. I put the cylinder head on with the piston. All I'm doing now is I'm checking squish, and I'm going to get timing numbers. So first things first, we're going to check squish. Yeah, 23, 24 thousandths. So we're not super tight, but that's okay. I don't need this to be a really tight squish saw. And when I actually sit this down a shade further, and when I really tighten up the bolts, it'll maybe a thousandth or two more. So now we're going to get some timing numbers. I've got my piston stop here, which is going to go in at some fairly arbitrary type of point here. The piston stopped. I'm going to move the wheel. So now we're about 45 there. And we're at 70 there. So I'm going to move the wheel halfway between the two. 45 and 70 is 35. So half of 35. It's 16 and a half. No. 15, 16, 17 and a half. 10, 15. Really rough. So now we're at 62 or 63 there. That's 53. $58. $58. Now we're on the money. Tighten this up. Again, this wheel is really not intended to be super exact. $58. I'll call it darn close. Yeah. And now what I'll do is I'll move the piston stop out a little bit more to take a second measurement. So 25, 26, 27, 27, 28-ish. Yeah, now we're good. So now I've really got a good measurement there. Now we can shine a light in here and see if we can find exhaust timing. I just see light somewhere around 100, 101, 102, 103. So I only change things by a degree. Let's check transfer opening. $100, $110, $118, $119 maybe, $119. So we still have a pretty tight blowdown. In the intake, 73. So yeah, we did not change the numbers a whole lot here. You know what? Let's just do something simple. Here's what we're going to do. I'm not going to go crazy on this saw. It already runs. I don't know what the compression is going to be, but based on the fact that there have been issues with this saw, especially hooking rings, let's not do anything drastic. So if I don't even touch the transfers, how about I just bring the exhaust down 3 degrees and I increase the intake a little bit. So that way the blowdown's a little more normal. And so bring the exhaust to 100, bring the intake closer to 80, and I won't touch the transfers at all. I'm just going to leave them the way that they are. Widen the intake, widen the exhaust just a touch, and make sure they're appropriately sized. I think that's pretty much what we're going to do here.